Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. Today we're talking about Marseille Lazio, and we are looking forward to Sunday, Lazio Salernitana. Very important match, a very important test, as Sarri mentioned yesterday in the press conference post Marseille Lazio. But before Alasdair, good morning, by the way, we have to talk about the match of yesterday. I don't know. I felt a little bit the same like Atalanta-Lazio, right? Lazio going ahead, and then this time it was an extra time, but the equalizer came in the last minute of the match, and it's a little bit of shame again, right?
Yeah, I think the parallels between the Marseille game and the Atalanta game were impossible to miss, really. Obviously, both finishing 2-2, both not quite as late and as painful, like you say, this time as it was in Bergamo. But again, as well, I think the other parallel for me was the fact that although they didn't get a result, we probably feel they could have come away with. It wasn't really a concerning performance, and I think that maybe is what we always are worried about with these midweek games, is what Lazio is going to turn up, given what we've seen so far this season with highs and lows of performances when they're playing so regularly. So I think it was a good performance in a difficult, volatile environment, and it leaves us in a good position still in the Europa League.
Good position, but not great. Now Lazio has to win the next two matches, right? To have a chance, because the goal, let's not forget, is arrive first. Because if you arrive second, you're going to play against the Champions League team relegated. So the team that arrived third. So it's going to be quite...
That makes it interesting, though. At least that makes the Europa League worth watching.
But it makes it more complicated for a team like Lazio if they arrive second. So I would add, comparing to the two matches, that definitely in Bergamo, Lazio played better in the second half. I thought Sarri said we were in control yesterday when we conceded the second goal. I thought Lazio was starting to struggle a little bit. I thought Marseille was not dominated, but definitely creating far more chances than Atalanta had last weekend. So something didn't work out yesterday as well, but definitely the atmosphere was terrible, and it was a very complicated match, Alasdair.
It was, yeah, and I think that perhaps the momentum swings were for shorter periods in this game than they were against Atalanta, where it felt more like, large parts of the game were dominated by one team or the other, whereas this one, it seemed like every kind of 5 to 10 minute period was changing about who you felt was on top of the game, especially in the second half. I think Lazio started the second half really well, which, clearly boosted by the fact that they got that equaliser so late in the first half. I think that always helps. And great finish from Ciro. I have to say again, we mentioned it last time that he'd equaled the record. Well, now he is officially Lazio's all-time top scorer. So incredible, classic Ciro finish into the far bottom corner. But yeah, I think that I was pretty happy with the way they handled the game in general. Quite happy with the energy levels. I think that they could do with a break. It's good that the international break is so close, because there's a lot of the same players being used, isn't it? That front three, that defence, occasional change in midfield, but otherwise it's more or less the same team every week. So, I think it was pretty promising.
My dog doesn't agree with you, so we will have to discuss about it. A little bit about Ciro Immobile, because he didn't train with the team in the past days. There were some doubt that he couldn't play, he couldn't start. He said not only he scored, and I thought he was terrific because, as usual, he helped the team defending. He was everywhere, and I don't know what else to say. Imagine a player who shouldn't be playing and play like that. This is terrific. Yeah. And yesterday I was thinking, if we had 11 Ciro Immobile, we would have won the Scudetto easily.
Yeah, I thought it was an amazing performance, considering, like you say, the fact that his involvement was in doubt as recently as the day before. People were talking about whether or not he'd be fit. And it was a classic kind of, what's the word, selfless performance. You know, he just puts in so much work, and the amount he was running to kind of stretch that defence, to create openings. There were a couple of, well, quite a few occasions, I think, where there were quite good passes into him to meet his runs, and it was either just he couldn't quite get there in time, or the touch wasn't right, or the ball was a bit long, but they were creating those openings. And then for me, I think the moment that summed it all up was right at the end, where suddenly Abir's kind of in the left back position, wins a tackle, kind of keeps the ball, and then wins a free kick. And that was that period when Lazio were under a lot of pressure. And I just thought, my God, how does he still have the energy to be doing that kind of defensive work so well? So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a reason we call him the king. He's an incredible player who's still performing at just such a high level. So I think, you know, it's fitting that he'll go down as the greatest for Lazio, I think.
Yeah, another terrific performance from Ciro Immobile. What about the others? Because we said it, Felipe Anderson is tired. I have to say that after the goal, it looks like he started playing better than he was playing before. But at the same time, Pedro wasn't shining as usual. And in fact, when Felipe Anderson came out, I was a little bit surprised because I thought Pedro was the player to sub. But the problem is at the moment, Alasdair, we are playing always the same three in front. Pedro, Felipe Anderson, Ciro Immobile. Ciro Immobile, Felipe Anderson, Pedro. Those three playing. Zaccagni is injured. Raul Moro, it's a little bit too young. And yesterday when he came in, I thought he didn't do much. And I don't think it was the right time to put in him. Too young, doesn't have that big experience in those matches. Luca Romero is even younger than Raul Moro. So we really don't have that many options there. And we're in November. So there's plenty to go on. And I'm starting to be worried for these three starters in attack for Lazio.
Yeah, and the Pedro Felipe Anderson thing is, it's funny you say that, because it made me realize that although Pedro and Felipe Anderson, I think we can both say, have been great signings so far, have produced far better performances than we expected pre-season, I can't really remember many games where they're both playing brilliantly at the same time. It always feels like when one is on form, the other one's a bit quieter.
The derby, probably.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But yeah, it does feel like that happens quite often. But yeah, I mean, who can blame them? I think Pedro, you know, the commentator was saying last night that Pedro was looking like he was tired, and fair enough. You know, he's no spring chicken anymore, and he's playing a role in a team that requires a hell of a lot of energy. A lot's been made of the fact that Lazio have done more running than any other team in Serie A so far this season, and you know, Sarri's spoken about the fact that he wants his players to basically be more intelligent when they choose to make these runs, and it's great that they're putting in the yards, but they need to, you know, use their energy intelligently instead of just running around like headless chickens. So
and Felipe Anderson started all the matches this season, all of them.
Yeah. So I do wonder as well, with January coming up, I mean, we saw last night, we've had reports all week about the club wanting to extend Sarri's contract already. And then Iglitare confirmed that last night before the game. So I think that's fantastic news that both parties see that, have been so impressed by what's happened already, that they're willing to do that. But what I also think it means is that, well, what does this mean for the January transfer market? Because clearly, if they're going to make this big state of intent by saying, here's a new contract after 3 months, we want you here long term, then Sarri should be in a position to be able to turn around and say, okay, well, look at what's happened so far. I need X, Y, Z. I need a new winger. I need a mid-Salah. I need a centre-back. What do you think?
Yes, but we are not Paris Saint-Germain. I think that's the biggest problem, right? Uh, um, because till yesterday morning, I was thinking, okay, we need a central defender and probably Vittorio Immobile if Murici gets sold because he's hardly playing. So you if you have it, but he never plays, then oh, it's useless anyway. But after yesterday, I was thinking, okay, we need a central defender, a wing or maybe two, and another number 9. I mean, 3 signings is becoming a lot. We know that we have to try to place Vavro, Lukaku, Durmisi, and probably Murici. So this is another concerning part. But yes, I feel, Alzer, that the gap is not that huge. I mean, with a central defender, a good central defender, and a good winger, I think Lazio could really be the lead team for reaching the Champions League, the 4th spot in the Champions League. So, but how often did we say this thing? How often do we say, if Lazio signed 2 good players in January, we're going to arrive in the Champions League? And how often didn't happen?
Well, I think the secret, like we alluded to last week, is to say to Iglitare, okay, we need 3 players in January and we're giving you 10 million euros to sign them all. And he'll probably come up with something quite good. So I don't know. I mean, Lazio made such a habit of not doing anything in January that it's almost inevitable now that they will feel like they're not going to do much. But actually, I think there are opportunities in the winter market where you don't, it's got a reputation for being a market where you often make, instinctive, spontaneous decisions, or you can overpay for players or whatever. But actually, I think what we've seen in the last year and a half or so is so many more players now are running down their contracts at clubs. And I think across Europe, you can see already, even in Serie A, even at Lazio, that there's a hell of a lot of players who will be out of contract at the end of this season. And maybe if you're wanting a good level of player who you're not going to have to pay an awful lot from, I mean, this sounds like I'm oversimplifying it a bit, but just for example,
a little bit.
But it is something that's possible. There are options out there. It doesn't have to be that you're spending another 20 million euros on a Murici in January in order to bolster the squad. So yeah, I just think because of the news around Sarri and because of the timing of it, with 1 month to go until 2 months to go until the January market opens, they must have talked about that. But were you surprised, happy? How do you feel about the idea of him being extended already?
Well, I think that's a very good sign, right? Because, as I said often, Sarri is the best manager in the Lotito era we had in Rome. So that's definitely a good sign. The other thing is when he got presented this summer, he said, well, they offer me more years, but I accept only 2 because I need to see how things go, how I feel, if I'm still passionate, willing to do this job. And he said that he's very happy with the team. He's very happy with the staff, with the president. So it looks like Sarri is very satisfied and believe he can really do well here. So that's definitely positive. I agree with you. I can see Sarri saying, okay, we can extend the contract, but I need at least try to get this type of players. Let's not forget that Lazio eventually has Johnny, Lukaku, Durmisi, Vavro, have a lot of players that I cannot believe they really don't have any type of market or offer. I simply cannot believe it. So, if you sell those players, you can get a little bit of money too. I mean, you don't have to sign Neymar, right? You just have to sign a good player, maybe someone who's looking for revenge after 6 months on the bench or things like that. A Pedro signing is a perfect example. So I hope that talking about this, it's November, so Tade has plenty of time to start talking, looking around. But yeah, I hope this is the sign we are hoping for.
Just wait for Lazio to bring in Dusan Vlahovic and Lorenzo Insigne in January.
Yeah, I can see it happen. Going back to the match, Alasdair, I thought that the game changed in the second half when we made those subs. I'm not saying that Leva was playing great, but Milinkovic Savic and Akpa Pro didn't come with a positive attitude. They made a lot of mistakes, and I thought Luis Alberto was playing well, and he was moving the ball well and creating problem to Olympique Marseille. While both Milinkovic Savic and Akpa Pro made a lot of mistakes, especially when they recovered the ball and Lazio could have gone in counter-attack. Instead, we struggled, we lost the ball too close to our box, and this created a lot of problems. Do you agree with me that this time the substitution didn't came with the right attitude?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it's been flagged up since the end of the game. Obviously, the fact that again once the substitutions were made, Lazio's found themselves under more pressure and ended up conceding the equaliser. Different substitutions this time, obviously. Akpa Pro I saw coming in for a bit of stick. I'm not sure that's necessarily fair, but I think Lazio just ended up dropping deeper. I don't know how much you can blame that on the substitutions necessarily, compared to the entire team being tireder, compared to Marseille needing the goal and putting more pressure on them. And look, this is a good Marseille team. They've got a lot of good individual players there. They've got a really smart coach who does some very interesting things tactically, and they had the chances in this game. Let's not kid around. I mean, a draw doesn't exactly it's not an unfair result, but I think it was just that, really. I don't think we can blame the substitutions for the result. I think it's probably maybe there would be more to that if it was exactly the same changes that we'd made against Atalanta and the same thing happened again, but it wasn't the case here, so I'm not really buying into it.
So I'm sorry, we cannot blame Murici for this, because a lot of people last time said, Murici, you're terrible, we lost because of you. So I'm
sure someone will find a way, don't worry.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can see it happening. Before we move on, I don't see any statement about UEFA for what happened yesterday, and I think really this is not acceptable. Lazio fan couldn't go to France, and Marseille fans was not allowing Luis Alberto to take a corner kick, and nothing happened. And it's not the first time. Olympique Marseille fans are very known all over the world for being very difficult. There had been a fight between Galatasaray fans and Olympique Marseille fan. And again, the stadium yesterday was packed. So do you think UEFA is doing a good job?
We'll see. I mean, they tend to be quite slow, I think, in actually handing out any sort of disciplinary measures quite often. We've obviously just seen Pepe Reina being hit on the head with a coin against Atalanta. So to follow that up with images of Alberto being protected by a riot shield as he's just trying to take a corner kick, it doesn't make for a great, 4 days for European football in general, does it?
Nope.
And this is in a week where Lazio are the ones who have ended up being in the international media again, being portrayed, being demonized, without having actually done anything in this case, because the French Interior Ministry, while issuing this decree about not letting fans travel, took a completely gratuitous dig at Lazio for being violent, for fascist chants, for Nazi salutes, which is a completely irresponsible thing to do for a government decree. It's fine to say we're not allowing fans to travel because of the risk of violence. I mean, look, 3 years ago, there was violence when Lazio and Marseille played each other in this competition. This is the reason why Marseille fans didn't come to Rome 2 weeks ago. I don't remember an Italian government official coming out and saying we're not letting Marseille fans in because they are all this, and this. And as a result, it once again perpetuates this terrible image of Lazio overseas. And obviously the club were very unhappy about it and responded quite strongly to it. But it's left, well, I think it leaves most fans feeling a bit powerless and deflated, really, because nothing's even happened in this case. They've just been accused of something. By France.
And I was checking L'Equipe this morning, and there's nothing about what happened in Marseille Lazio. So I'm surprised, because when it happened, Gazzetta dello Sport has plenty of article against Lazio fan, but it looks like when it happens to the other teams, it's pretty much invisible. Going back to yesterday, Strakosha started, and I thought he had a good performance. Made a couple of good saves.
Yes, he was. There was a very good one on Milik in the first half. I think he did get caught out a bit for that one where the kind of cross gets whipped in by Under and he just kind of freezes and it comes off the post. But yeah, I mean, I think this is just what we're going to see this season. You know, it's Strakosha is going to be our cup goalkeeper and Reina will be the Serie A goalkeeper. I mean, at least that for Strakosha is an improvement on what was happening last year, where he wasn't even getting games in the cup. So that's something. But, you know, it remains a confusing situation because he's out of contract at the end of the season. I can't imagine him signing a new contract if this is the situation for him. And unless he's sold in January, which leaves us with basically no one, then he's going for free again, another one. So yeah.
Yes, it's a complicated situation. I was happy to see him because also with his feet, he moved the ball well yesterday, much better than we used to. So that for me is an encouraging sign. And who knows, maybe against Salernitana he could have a chance even in Serie A, seeing how on the other side Reina is performing. Talking about Salernitana, Sarri said this is the real test. This is going to be the real test because this team, Lazio, has been very good against good teams. But then when they play lower team, easier team, have always failed to perform. This happened against Bologna. This happened against Verona. This time is at home, so it's probably a little bit different. But still, I'm very concerned. I'm worried. And I think that Salernitana will come to the Stadio Olimpico and prove that they have nothing to do with Lotito. They will fight like if it's a final of Champions League to prove everybody that this is not the second team of Lotito. So this makes it even worse for me.
Yeah, and there'll inevitably be a few ex-Lazio players in the ranks as well. I think the thing is, I just cannot work out what Salernitana are since Colantuono took over. He's had 3 games. The first one, they were 4-0 down by half-time against Empoli. And then they beat Venezia in a game, to be fair, that they had to win. And then I don't know if you saw the Napoli game last weekend, but they lost that game, but it was very, very close. Napoli really, really struggled to create many chances. To be fair, they didn't have Osimhen or Insigne, but they found it really difficult. And I think if Salernitana put in that kind of performance again against Lazio probably will find it difficult coming off this midweek trip to France. We already spoke about the fact that the same players are being used and they're looking a bit tired. But you know, let's not beat around the bush. If Lazio are aiming for a top 4 spot this year, they have to win home games against teams like Salernitana. There's no excuse, really. And there is an international break after this, so any last ounces of energy left have to be used.
So you're saying no turnover. We have to start the starting 11 against Salernitana.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it depends what you mean by no turnover, because I would put Cataldi back in the team, for example, because for me, I think he should be the starting central midfielder now. Milinkovic-Savic should come back in for Basic. But beyond that, yeah, pretty much the same team, I think. I mean, well, Pepe Reina will come back in whether we like it or not, but Lazio picking up an injury though in France is a shame, because I think the fullbacks have been quite well rotated this year by Sarri. I think he's done well to try and maintain the energy levels between those three. So hopefully it's not too bad. I mean, he did walk off the pitch. He didn't look like he was in incredible pain or anything, at least, but let's see how that goes.
So no turnover. Okay. I was thinking that maybe that was the perfect match to give a break for Pedro Felipe Anderson. Maybe start
for who? For Moro and Romero.
Not both. One of them.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think Moro will get a start sooner or later, won't he? I mean, he's been getting a lot of time off the bench. So yeah, I think sooner or later he will. But the way I see it, I just can't imagine Sarri doing anything other than playing the same team.
Yeah, and we have to thanks again Luis Enrique, because Luis Alberto hasn't been called. It's official, which is simply unbelievable. But it's great news for Lazio fan, because he will have a couple of weeks to rest. Unfortunately, I think Acerbi and Immobile will go with the national team. Milinkovic will go. So we're going to lose a couple of players, but having Luis Alberto, it's great news. I think Felipe Anderson as well won't be called. So let's see the positive side, right? The national team's not calling a lot of Laziali, and this is good for us. Even because afterwards there's Juventus, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. In an ideal world, I think we'd want to be playing Juventus right now.
Yeah.
But we'll see what situation they're in. I mean, obviously they've got a lot of international players, and they've had all sorts of problems after international breaks this season, with particularly South American players coming back very late. I'm not entirely sure if that's the case. I haven't looked up the fixture schedule this time to see if that's going to be happening again. But yeah, I mean, obviously Lazio have a bit of advantage there. But no, I mean, look, Salernitana, it's not the most exciting game on the fixture list, perhaps, but I think it's a huge opportunity, because this weekend there's the Milan derby as well, obviously. So I mean, maybe those teams are a bit too far ahead anyway, but there will be teams up there dropping points.
Talking about this match, Salernitana fans are probably nearly playing an away game, because the Curva Sud will be full of Salernitana fans. And at the moment, Lazio didn't sell a lot of tickets. And Alasdair, there is this amazing thing that by the Lazio marketing that I want to talk to you. So if you are under 14, you get a free ticket, but you adult has to buy the ticket online, and then you have to go to the Lazio style to get the free ticket for your kid that is under 14. I mean, if you could make it a little bit more complicated, I would struggle to make it a little bit more complicated. And my daughter, that is under 14, I think it's easier for me to buy the ticket online for her and pay, rather than go to the Lazio style, find a parking, which is complicated, maybe get a fine that will cost me more than the ticket I would have paid. I mean, Lazio, you are amazing. I really have no words. You're doing anything. And the price of the ticket, I think Curva Nord this Sunday is 25 euros. So it's more expensive than last match. Against who we played at home last match? I don't remember, but it was 20 euros. And against Salernitana is 25. I don't know. If you want the stadium empty, you're doing the right thing.
Fiorentina. Yeah, I mean, it is worth bringing up the attendance thing, because it's been noticeable. I mean, to be fair, across the league, actually, that attendances haven't been great this season. It is worth flagging up that fact that there is no season ticket program currently, and that's usually the bulk of Lazio's matchday crowd is the season ticket holders. I mean, I can't remember how many exactly they usually get, but I think it's
33 on average.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a little bit less. Well, the attendance,
I was going to say 20, but maybe somewhere between. Yeah.
The attendance is usually 30, 33. The season ticket is around 20. But again, we play in the same stadium of Roma. Roma launched the season ticket 1 month ago, and we weren't able to do it. rumors are we're going to do it after Lazio Salernitana. But as we were saying before, Lazio already played at home against Inter, against Roma, against Fiorentina. There are not a lot of other big matches to attend after this. So I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, but to put that in context, I mean, how much is the season ticket? It's not a lot for a Lazio season ticket. I can't remember exactly now, but you know, the value you get for doing it that way rather than spending, like Vittorio says, 25 plus euros per match when there's matches, you know, every 3 days basically.
Yeah.
You're asking a lot of people. So I do think that, first of all, it's not a surprise that Europa League attendance has been terrible, because if you're going to make a saving as a fan, it's probably going to be at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night against a team you're not familiar with in a competition you don't really care about. But beyond that, it probably is games like Salernitana, unfortunately, despite it being really important. And it's a shame, because if you look back to, you know, when we last had crowds, start of 2019, I remember going to the last Lazio game before lockdown happened against Bologna, and the crowd was over 40,000. It was massive. I was in the Distinti Sud-Est and it was full. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, obviously Lazio were pushing for the Scudetto at that point, but it can be done, getting these big crowds.
Yeah, to give a little bit of context, the season ticket for Lazio, the average is the Curva Nord tickets is for you like 10 euros, while now getting every match a season ticket, the ticket, you start from 20 euros plus. So, you know, it's like the double, you pay the double that you would get with the season ticket. So, and 20 in the small team. In the derby, I think it was 30, 45. So you see, it's a lot of money. And as you were mentioning, Lazio played twice at home more often. We have 3 matches a week, and sometimes it happened that Lazio was at home in Serie A and in Europa League, and this has been terrible. And then take Roma. Yesterday, Roma played, and there were 40,000, I think, at the stadium. It's true that part of these tickets were for the season ticket holders as well. I think it was the Europa League was part of the season ticket, so that's a huge advantage. Because I mean, if I already paid for the ticket, then I will go even against Salernitana or I don't know, Lokomotiv Moscow, etc. Right? So I mean, doesn't make sense. It's not a smart strategy from the marketing.
Yeah, because it's not just the actual cost; it's the going out of your way to have to go and buy the ticket, put in all your details, you know, go through the actual faff of getting hold of a ticket, and as opposed to just turning up on the day and going in.
Yeah.
One last thing to say about Salernitana, because I know it always winds you up, so something to look forward to is that Italy are playing New Zealand in the rugby tomorrow, the day before. Now,
Yeah, I was going to say it.
One difference here compared to normal. Previously, we've had it in the Six Nations, for example, that there's been a late kickoff on a Saturday into an early kickoff for Lazio on a Sunday, whereas this time the rugby kicks off at 2 o'clock, Lazio kick off at 6, I think. So at least there's a bit more of a turnaround. My one concern here isn't so much about the rugby, because to be honest, I don't think it ever ends up really being that big a deal as people make out. But it's the fact that people are already complaining about the state of the Olimpico pitch a lot this season, whether it's Sarri or Mourinho or visiting coaches. The Olimpico pitch has come in for a lot of criticism, so it's not going to help probably having all the All Blacks players running around, kind of 20-stone players running around doing scrums on it.
Yeah, and there has been heavy rain in Rome recently, so this definitely didn't help. The only positive things, Alasdair, is that we hope that New Zealand destroy Italy in the first quarter, so they maybe relax in the second half, so they don't destroy the pitch that much, right?
Rest assured, that's probably what's going to happen.
Well, it looks like there's only 3 starters starting for New Zealand tomorrow, so I don't know if that's going to make a big difference. I think we're going to lose heavily as usual, even like that. But the last thing is, when there's rugby, Lazio is always the team playing afterwards. That's simply unbelievable.
Yeah, the figures of that are incredible. The regularity with which that happens, but Yeah, but anyway, just something to keep an eye out for. But hopefully they sort it out in time. They should have enough time.
Yeah. We have to wrap it here, and I wasn't able to talk about the referee. I thought he was awful, but we cannot go into much details.
Do a separate podcast, Vittorio. We should just have you doing a referee rant segment every week, just after every game, 10 minutes of you complaining.
I mean, the Felipe Anderson goal was simply embarrassing. If I was a UEFA guy there, I would say to the ref and the linesman, okay, you're out. Your second half, you're out. I'll find someone else. But we're going to talk maybe another time about the...
You sound like Mourinho.
Don't, please don't. At least we were playing against Olympique Marseille, not semi-professional team.
Oh, hey! Don't say a bad word about Bodo Glimt. They're my new favorite team.
Definitely. I'm gonna try to find the shirt as soon as I get. I don't know if it's available, but
it's 61 on the bet.
For sure. Thank you again, Alasdair, for joining me. We'll be back after Lazio Salernitana, guys. As usual, rate and subscribe our podcast on Apple. Please, this help us reach more fans. And you can follow us on Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you again, Alasdair. Goodbye.
Cheers.